You are experiencing the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast.
It is May 21st, 2025, and welcome to the Knuckleheads of Liberty. We're bringing you the people and the organizations fighting for liberty around the country and in your region. Today is going to be a little more of a topical show. There's been a lot happening in immigration to talk about, a little bit on the reparations front, and finally we'll wrap it up with some knucklehead comments we've heard recently on tariffs. So we got to talk about that. But before we get into any of that, let me introduce you to our panel. In our upper left-hand corner, we have Leon, the word Brathwaite, last word in Liberty. He is a retired engineer in the state of California. In our upper right-hand corner, we have our screaming eagle of freedom, Tim Everett. He is a pilot in the state of California. My name is Jason McPhee, and I'll be your host. So we always start off the show with a quote of the day, and this time it's kind of a catch-all, I think, right at the heart of libertarian principles, and certainly applies to the tariff story we'll talk about at the end. But let's see, I will bring up the visual here, and our quote is from Ludwig von Mises, the father of Austrian School of Economics. And the quote is, "Every government intervention in the marketplaces creates unintended consequences, which lead to calls for further government interventions." So I think that's, in a nutshell, why libertarians are so skeptical and so concerned with calls for government intervention, because it always leads to more distortions and more problems, and seldom winds up solving problems in the way that the planners think it's going to solve them. And I think, we may be running into some of that with some of the tariffs. Certainly, we see that with our debt and all kinds of other problems out there. What do you guys think of this quote? I think it is spot on.
Well, yeah, I think it's common knowledge that the government cause a problem, and then they try to solve the problem which you originally caused, which normally even cause further problems. And if you want to see a very good example of that, is to look at this massive welfare system that we have going. All of the problems we see, especially in inner city America, they all been caused by the government, especially Democratic-run governments. They have all been caused. And you know what they're trying to do right now? They're trying to fix the problem with more government interventions into the lives of people. And what are we having? A bunch of disasters in and out every day, year in, year out. And everybody's calling, let's have a little bit more. Let's have a little bit more. And the government will solve it. The government must do something. We are on a slippery slope on the road to hell, which is paved with good intentions. And that's all that is going on right now.
Yeah, I agree about that too. Unintended consequences are things either they don't watch out for or don't know about, or they know about them and don't care about them. And so one of those, but they are not the consequences that they talk about when they intervene in the marketplace, whatever they do. So, yeah, I agree.
Well, what I always find funny, Tim, on all this is that with the unintended consequences, our illustrious planners never imagined that there could be unintended consequences. They just roll forward with all these bad ideas, and surprise, surprise, they need another government intervention a day later just to fix what they were trying to fix for you a day ago. So really reminds me of that other quote from Ronald Reagan, where he said the scariest words in government are or the scariest words, I guess, of all is when somebody shows up at your door and says, we're with the government and we're here to help.
We're here to help, exactly. And I just wish if all of these liberals with their lunatic ideas would just come to the realization that if government intervention into people's lives was such a great and wonderful thing, the Soviet Union would have been a paradise.
Okay. Well, it sure wasn't for most of them. That's for sure. Well, I tell you what, a lot of people seem to be running from a lot of those socialist countries and central planners as well. And that's leading to a lot of the immigration problems we're currently having. And that really brings up, I guess, a lot of recent stories. I mean, we're still sort of getting over the chaos of the last 4 years of what's gone on in immigration. And I think I'll bring up a story real quick to give us a little bit of background on that. This is from, I guess, U.S. News and World Report, and it is from May. And they have a graphic, and that's the main reason I brought this up, because they talk about the apprehensions at the southern border, and it's a nice graphic here. And you can see that the numbers were approaching over 140,000 roughly back in February of 2022. And now during Trump's time here in office in February of 2025, less than 10,000. So, it's funny because from a libertarian perspective, we like to see the idea that people have the liberty to cross borders, but we've seen with the chaos of all of the, I guess, social safety net and welfare state, it just is such a terrible incentive, and it's caused all these problems. But, that said, the good, the bad, and the ugly of Trump, it is, one of the things that he is definitely addressing the problems that were created by Joe Biden. But it is leading to, now that Trump is fixing, or at least, I guess, adjusting a lot of these problems from Joe Biden, we're seeing a lot of craziness play out. And one of those is from a story that we saw in I think it's in Milwaukee, where a judge literally tried to help a migrant who was supposed to be in her court for some sort of a criminal hearing, and she helped him.
He beat his wife, or something with beating his wife, or something like that.
Yeah, and let's. I'm going to bring up the video so that we can hear a little bit of background on that story. But this is kind of the chaos now that we're going to be seeing a lot of, I think, as we kind of roll through a lot of these corrections from the last 4 years.
The Wisconsin Supreme Court has suspended the judicial powers of Milwaukee County Circuit Judge Hannah Dugan after she was charged with obstructing federal immigration agents who were attempting to arrest an illegal immigrant. According to a criminal complaint, Dugan confronted two plainclothes border agents outside her courtroom during an April 18th pretrial hearing after learning they had a warrant for Flores-Reyes' arrest. He had been deported in 2013 and was back in the country illegally. After initially demanding the agents leave, Dugan escorted Flores-Reyes and his attorney out a jury door into a non-public area of the courthouse, allegedly allowing him to evade arrest. Flores-Reyes, who was in court for 3 misdemeanor battery charges, was later captured by federal agents after fleeing on foot. The 65-year-old judge has been temporarily relieved of her duties as she faces federal charges for obstruction and concealment to prevent arrest.
I meant what I said. You cannot support what we're doing. And you can support sanctuary cities. That's what you want to do. But if you cross that line of impediment or knowingly harboring, concealing illegal alien, that is a felony. And we're treated as such.
So what do you guys think? I mean, it appears justice is not blind in Milwaukee. They've got their thumb on the scale. What do you guys think of this story?
Well, justice may not be blind, but sure, I think she walked in knowing full well what she was doing. I just didn't mind breaking the law on that situation. So I think she was well cited and did it anyway.
Yeah. Well, we have a bunch of lunatics in our society right now who believe that people should be able to just walk across the border and demand rights within the United States. Okay? And Jason, I'm going to push back on your little statement. There are no circumstances under which open borders can work. There is none. Okay? There are no circumstances under which open borders can work. And when we have open borders, exactly what we see happen in the last 4 years is going to happen again. Even if we're starting from where we have no welfare state, it's going to happen again, because the politicians will always there with their dirty fingers looking for votes. They will always find some way to encourage people to come here by crossing the border. There are no circumstances. But getting back to this woman, she's part of the lunatic fringe of the Democratic Party that think that people should be able to get up in some foreign country and walk across the border and demand rights of us, whether they want health care, whether they want their children to go to school, or whatever else they want. This should not happen. And I'm glad I arrested this judge, and there are a few other people that should get arrested for allowing these things to happen, for encouraging these things to happen. This woman's a judge, a woman who's supposed to be concerned about the fair administration of justice. And she is helping an alleged criminal escape the tentacles of the law. This is outrageous. And I'm glad she was arrested. There are a few other people that should make examples of, because we have to make sure that the law is properly enforced. We have to show people that we still have a country that have borders, a country where there is still a sovereignty. And we have to stop people from encouraging people to just walk across the border. This cannot happen. It will kill us as a country.
Well, and Leon, it's funny because we've had this conversation about a million times, and
I know
there's always kind of an amnesia about what my position is with you. But specifically, when I say open borders, I'm not really saying just let people be free to come wherever they want, but it's mainly just to have very few restrictions, but come through a port of entry. And, if you're a criminal, keep you out. And if you, got some other massive problem, keep you out. But essentially, otherwise, it's kind of an issue of liberty, the idea that if it's not just restricting their freedom, it's also restricting your freedom if you had somebody on the other side of that border that you'd like to interact with, and the government's telling you no. So that's all. But it's not like just, hey, everybody run for the border. That's not what I'm saying. So I just wanted to clear that up.
Well, yes, let me go ahead, Tim. Go ahead.
Yeah, well, so I mean, there was many decades where there was no or very little, not none, but there was very little enforcement of border crossings between Mexico and the United States, Canada and the United States in our early years as a union, and of course a completely different political landscape back then. So are you
specifically, Tim, no welfare state back then? I mean, the government.
This is the problem. I was just going to point out to Tim. We didn't have the welfare state in place at those times, which is true what you're saying. But we did not have a welfare state. But what happens? The politicians with their dirty little hands looking for votes started to put up the welfare state and started to encourage people to come here illegally. Go ahead. I'm sorry. I didn't mean to interrupt you.
So I'm just want to verify or make sure that it's correct that you're saying that that before the welfare state, there was times when you could have had open borders, but ever since the welfare state, open borders invite people to come in and take advantage of the situation. Is that what you're saying?
That's what I'm saying. And I am saying that open borders can never work, even though Jason have clarified his position. We have had this conversation a million times, at least, maybe 1,000,001, Jason. But open borders can never work, because even if we starting from the zero welfare state, the politicians will use their power and their dirty little hands to look for votes, and will start pushing up the state to do the very same thing that we are trying to avoid.
And I just wanted to emphasize the main part of Leon's point is those politicians have dirty little hands.
Oh, that's all you got from my statement, Jason.
Well, it's funny because there's another story I wanted to touch on in immigration, and it also has to do with a politician maybe with their dirty little hands actually getting them on ICE agents and getting herself into trouble. So let's see if I'm going to pull up the story here for that. But in this particular story, a Democrat representative from the House of Representatives, LaMonica McIver, and she's actually charged with, I guess, an attack on an assault on ICE workers when they were trying to bring a load of migrants into an ICE facility. And we actually have a little video on that. So I am going to bring that up.
And cannot impede ICE agents. You can't assault ICE agents. You can't put hands on ICE agents. The actions that were taken that day totally escalated the situation, and it made it unsafe for everybody.
People in power will always find a strong black woman or man to target, to bully, to intimidate, to insult, to malign, and to harm.
So reaction is pouring in as a New Jersey congresswoman faces federal charges from that altercation outside an immigration enforcement facility in Newark. The Trump administration making it clear a new sheriff is in town.
The days of woke are over. That woman, I have no idea who she is. That woman was out of control. She was shoving federal agents. She was out of control. The days of that crap are over in this country. We're going to have law and order.
So there you have it. And just in case you missed it, I tried to say it during the video, but it was the woman in red. So
Yeah.
as it always is, the problem's always the woman in red.
The lady in red, you know, there was a whole song about the lady in red. Okay.
There you go.
Yes.
Maybe they'll make a song for her on this one. But yeah, this is absolutely nuts. I mean, to me, it looked kind of insurrection-y what was happening there. That was a government facility, and those people were charging the officers of the law there.
Exactly.
So, but yeah, what do you guys thought of this? This seems nuts. I mean, these are representatives, and they're actually getting into shoving matches with police officers. I mean, she didn't really. I know there was one thing where they actually said she body slammed someone, and I didn't see any evidence of that in the video. But she definitely was kind of hitting people with her arm and shoving
for
these,
sure. For sure,
officers
yes.
while they were trying to do their job, which is absolutely nuts. I mean, that would be an assault on an officer if somebody pulled you over for a parking ticket and you did that to a police officer. That would definitely be an assault. So anyways, yeah, just curious, what are you guys' thoughts on this one?
You see, the horrible thing about this is really and truly the media coverage of this. Okay, the mainstream media is probably the most dishonest institution we have in America today, and they are supposed to be the journalists within our society, the free press within our society, the free press that is protected by our Constitution. These people are so damn dishonest. When we had the January 6th situation, oh, look at all of these people obstructing a constitutional process. This is mandated by the Constitution, and Trump and that evil Trump and what he was doing, blah, 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 and all these other things was going on. And they even impeached Trump over it. Now, what we have here, a member of Congress, this is not no ordinary person on the street. A member of Congress goes to a federal facility where we are holding criminals, because that's what they are, they cross the border illegally. We are holding criminals, storm the facility, get into a shoving match with government officials, okay, ICE agents, and now she's charged. And you know the media is trying to make a hero out of her. Did you hear Eva Clark? She's a congresswoman from somewhere around here in New York, talking about, we targeting, now it's an issue of race, obviously. We targeting a strong black woman. Well, the strong black woman should have keep her ass where it was supposed to be, which is not storming facilities. If she wanted to have a guided tour of the facility as a member of Congress, she could request that, and I'm sure they would have accommodated her. But you have no right, even as a member of Congress, to go storm some facility and get in a shoving match with government officials, ICE agents in this case. They'll have to treat her just like they treat the January 6 people. Okay, they were arrested, they were placed in prison. Some of them waited very, very long times before they were tried, and some of them were even held in isolation. I hope they will dispense justice as equal as it did with the January 6 participants.
Were they charged with insurrection, these people that came into the ICE facility?
Not insurrection, Tim. Unfortunately, those political things only get sent in one direction. But
exactly.
Republicans are only capable of insurrection, but Democrats
no.
The
Democrats are only capable of fighting for social justice. That's all they do. Okay, it's the evil Republicans that get in insurrection-y.
Okay, so you see some hypocrisy between this situation and January 6th, is that right?
Big time. Big time
hypocrisy. Okay, we use the H word. We haven't done that in a while.
Well, and the crazy thing is, we've had a January 6 person on our show, and he did not, do anything violent that we saw. I mean, he never pushed a police officer, anything like that. And this woman was actually pushing officers of the law. And the idea that, if this was a Democrat administration, I don't even think she would have been charged. And
True.
I'll be very surprised if she winds up actually having to, if this doesn't get dismissed. But, we'll see.
Okay.
But the whole thing though is the one of the big charges against the January 6 people was obstructing federal officials from doing their constitutional duty. Okay. Now I can't say that this is she She was certainly obstructing federal officials from doing their jobs and doing their duty, right? This is duty that they were ordered to do by the President of the United States. So there are very strong parallels between the actions of this woman and the January 6th participants. But let us see, again, we get back to the issue with him. Let us see how they're going to treat her. Let's see how we're going to treat her in the press. Oh, is this social justice that we'll be talking about? Or are we going to be talking about the insurrection that this woman was leading?
Well, and the one thing that you can never, you can always count on with these guys is they're going to bring up the race card, and of course that's what they did. And you kind of mentioned it, and
of course,
it's just absolutely terrible because, we're never going to get together as a country if every time this becomes identity politics. And
their race, do you see, Jason? Their race card is their Trump card.
I don't know what is the Republicans' Trump card? Isn't it Trump?
I guess.
I don't know. Their Trump card against the leftist race Trump card. I don't know. We'll see how that plays out on this particular thing. But one thing that is interesting with all of this sanctuary city stuff, and like we saw in that first story, is that there's actually so essentially with these sanctuary cities, part of the problem is that officers are, I guess when somebody gets arrested, they're not holding them for the ICE officers. They're just literally releasing them onto the street, kind of like what that judge was trying to do in the first story. And this can be, pretty dangerous as far as if this person is an actual criminal, and the idea that if their ICE agents are looking for them, trying to apprehend them, it'd be a lot safer if they can get them there at the courthouse. And so one of the issues has been these sanctuary cities. How do you deal with that? Well, I guess they've actually got a pilot program going in California, of all places, to try and deal with that. In fact, here is a story on that. ICE agents get creative to get around LA sanctuary cities. And I'm going to bring up the video now to show you guys.
That federal frustration with California sanctuary state law has reached a boiling point. So as you just mentioned, the new U.S. attorney right here in Los Angeles has come up with a plan to force local cooperation with ICE, even if they're a sanctuary jurisdiction. It's called Operation Guardian Angel. It just started last week. It works, and we were given access to see it in action. In a Fox exclusive, you're watching an incredibly rare interaction as the jail in Los Angeles transfers an illegal alien to ICE custody. The sanctuary jurisdiction forced to hand this Mexican national over thanks to a first-of-its-kind federal operation.
With this operation, we're going to be neutralizing California sanctuary state policies.
Bill Asaley is the U.S. attorney in L.A. and the architect of Operation Guardian Angel.
California is the testing ground on this. We are one of the largest sanctuary jurisdictions.
So how does it work, you might ask? Well, the story goes on to explain.
They scan these criminal databases daily to find illegal aliens in local jails who have been previously deported from the United States.
We have a warrant for your arrest.
If they've returned to the U.S., they've committed a federal felony known as illegal reentry. And Asaley's office will immediately seek a criminal arrest warrant against them, which, unlike an ICE detainer, sanctuary jails can't ignore.
We're going to flood the system with warrants for criminal illegal immigrants that are in county jails. They can ignore a detainer, but they cannot ignore a criminal arrest warrant.
So essentially what's happening is they are putting another warrant, a federal warrant for them. And I guess that somehow makes them have to deliver them over. And since they're doing that in California, figure it must be something that actually worked. Because if anybody's going to look for a loophole to that, it's going to be California. So anyways, what do you guys think of that story? I think it's, maybe fixing some of the problems that they're having with cooperation or lack of it.
Well, it surely does, because what they are doing is they're issuing. You see, the detainer was like a little soft kind of thing. A detainer was like, pretty please hold this guy. Okay, that's what the ICE detainers were. Pretty please hold the guy. Instead, now we are having actual arrest warrants. Okay, federal arrest warrants. You cannot ignore those things. Okay, you have to deliver the person. If you have an actual person named in the arrest warrant, you have to deliver the person. And this is what they are doing right now. And I think this is a great thing. And I'm sure this is going to spread all over the country, where they're no longer going to be issuing detainers or they will probably still issue detainers, but also issue federal arrest warrants. And if they do that, well, they cooked. They have to hand them over.
Yeah, otherwise they're subject to harboring.
Yes.
Harboring
prosecution, well, not harboring, but for releasing.
Yeah.
They're releasing a criminal when there's a federal arrest warrant in place.
Yeah. Well, it should be effective then.
Yeah,
So,
I would think so.
It's almost like they would be that judge if they didn't hand them over, letting them out the back door. That we talked about in the story.
Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
Well, I think this is kind of some of the innovation I think that we're seeing out of the Trump administration. You know, I'm not always happy about everything I see with Trump because it seems like it's not always necessarily the most liberty-oriented thing, but we definitely had a problem with immigration, and a lot of people just threw up their hands how they're going to deal with it. And, you know, his administration is finding ways to sort of make us address a lot of these things. So, you know, I certainly don't see a problem with somebody who was literally a criminal. The idea that you're just going to try and find a way to let that person stay, that just seems kind of nuts, you know, if a person is for a crime, of all the people that they would want to kind of shepherd out. So, you guys have any last thoughts on this one before we jump to the next story?
I think is important for us to for the Trump administration to correct these things, because the Biden administration created a massive problem, and they threw up their hands. You just talk about throwing up their hands. They threw up their hands. They signed about 91 executive orders to take away all of the safeguards that Trump had in place when he was in his first term. They took it all away with all their executive orders, threw up their hands, and people start flooding the border. And then Biden started to talk, oh my goodness gracious, I don't have the authority to stop the flow. You really? Really, Joe? You don't? Well, we know you were not in charge, but whoever was in charge, they could have used the auto pen and still do it if they really wanted to. Or you could not, or you didn't have to sign all those executive orders that open up the borders. But there we are. But Trump is trying to correct that problem that the last administration created in spades.
Well, let me just break in now to say, if you're watching us on public access, you're going to have to catch the rest of the show online. So go check that out there, knuckleheadsofliberty.com. But now back to the show. So this brings up, there's one more immigration story I wanted to talk about, and there's all kinds of crazy stuff happening with immigration, but this one literally happened today. So all these have been fairly recent stories, but Trump, aside from the migrants that he has been, I guess, barring from coming to this country, he's made a few exceptions, and one of them has been for the African farmers, I guess you might call them, the South African farmers, the Boer, I guess. And he has made exceptions because he's saying that there's an actual genocide going on in that country. And this has come to a little bit of dispute. A lot of people on the left are saying there's no genocide happening. And, he is, and a lot of conservatives have been saying there is a genocide happening. And this came to a head today when the South African president was in the White House, and a question came up from a reporter asking exactly about this. And so this is going to be a slightly long clip because it has a little bit of video stuff embedded that Trump brought up at the White House. So I'm going to share this with you right now.
What would it take for you to be convinced that there's no white genocide in South Africa?
Well, I can answer that for the president. For him, I'd rather have him answer. Yeah, I'd rather answer that. It will be,
our president will respond to you.
Yeah,
Thank you, Mr. President.
It will take President Trump listening to the voices of South Africans, some of whom are his good friends, like those who are here. When we have talks between us on the quiet table, it will take President Trump to listen to them. I'm not going to be repeating what I've been saying. I would say if there was Afrikaner farmer genocide, I can bet you these three gentlemen would not be here, including my Minister of Agriculture. He would not be with me. So it'll take him, President Trump, listening to their stories, to their perspective. That is the answer to your question.
So it's pretty incredible. We have the press actually asking Trump what it's going to take to get him to admit that there's no South African genocide occurring on white farmers. And the amazing thing is the South African president actually jumps in to answer ahead of Trump and say what it's going to take. And it's just the response is absolutely nuts that we're going to show in the next clip, which is Trump literally has a TV brought in and puts the evidence right in these people's face of people at political rallies and in political bodies saying, kill the Boer, kill the white farmer, take their land. It's absolutely nuts. And so, and we had to edit this down just so it wouldn't be, because there was over 4 minutes that Trump had, I believe, in the White House. So we edited it down just a little bit. So here goes.
We have thousands of stories talking about it. Sure. And we have documentaries, we have news stories, and just put this on, it's right behind you.
Must never be scared to kill. And revolution demands that at some point there must be killing, because the killing is part of a revolutionary act.
There will be times, no one. But we are starting with this whiteness. We are cutting the throat of whiteness. It can't cut.
Shoot to kill. Come on, sir. Kill the poor, the farmer. Kill the poor, the farmer.
They will expropriate land without compensation, whether they like it or not. If they object, they can seek refugee in America.
I think in that last one, he was literally saying if we take their property, they can go seek their liberty in America. I thought he said. I'm not 100% sure.
It sounded like that. It sounded like that. I'm not sure what was said, but it sounded like what you said, Jason. Yes.
Yeah. Unfortunately, the audio quality wasn't great, but this is a compilation that Trump took of a whole bunch of stuff that's online that you can go find by just searching for this "kill the Boer" or any of those types of chants. But the crazy thing is, this is just another example of the mainstream media trying to tell us to our faces that there's nothing happening down there to be concerned about. And you literally see a stadium full of people yelling to kill some people. Yes. I can't imagine, how these are the people who get triggered by words, and they don't understand that could be that could cause some people to be concerned if you happen to identify as one of those people that everybody's saying we got to kill them.
Exactly.
Anyway, yeah. What do you guys think? I thought this was the ultimate mic drop, but anyways.
Well, yeah, I've heard at least one in recent history, recent past, long podcast with somebody that lives down there, a white person that lives down there, and they were talking about that whole thing about taking their land, kind of a reparations kind of style thing, and in the process, to drive off the white landowners that currently own the land. There's been a lot of violence going on down there, and there has been a lot of these kinds of speeches, and I think that was one of the guys he mentioned in the podcast. So there is something going on down there. It doesn't sound good, and I'm no expert on it, so I can't really talk about it really emphatically, but something's fishy down there.
Well, I'm not an expert, but I only play one on TV.
Well,
However, you see, this situation that is occurring in South Africa right now, it have happened before. Okay, it happened before. In the 1970s, in Uganda, Idi Amin decided that he's going to take the most prosperous people in Uganda were Asian Ugandans. He kicked them out, all of them out. And the economy of Uganda went to crap. Okay? The next thing that happened was in Zimbabwe. Well, Zimbabwe used to have apartheid. There were the white farmer class. And then Robert Mugabe came to power in 1980. And all of a sudden they decide, well, you know what, the best thing they can do? They can get rid of the white farmers and distribute their lands to the poor blacks in Zimbabwe. Zimbabwe used to feed Africa. Okay, it used to feed Africa. They were a very prosperous nation. I mean, for Africa, in African terms, they were a prosperous nation. They used to feed Africa. Now, I'm not going to discount the fact that they had apartheid, which was very bad for blacks in Zimbabwe. But they did exactly what they are trying to do in South Africa right now. They took away the land of the whites, they distributed it, and now the land is just sitting there wasting away for the most part. The very few of those farms have survived. And Zimbabwe went from being the providing the baskets of food for many parts of Africa to now being a basket case, okay, where they're looking for handouts throughout the world. I think, if I'm not mistaken, they are the one country that they have a record that they have had the highest inflation ever recorded in the world. Zimbabwe have had that. They have had to redo their whole economy now. Now they're trying to get out of it. I don't know if they ever will. Okay. Now South Africa is now following in that same trend. Well, they have the white farmers. Oh, look, they're so prosperous. They're so rich. And we have all these poor blacks hanging around. You know what we need to do? We'll take their lands, kick them out, and then what's going to happen? We're going to have prosperity, you think? We're going to have the same problems that you see in Zimbabwe that we see right now. We're going to have those same problems in South Africa. You watch and see, because sooner or later, they're going to start taking those lands from the... Now, there was a law in place, was passed in January, I believe, that allowed the government to take those lands. Now, they haven't done it as yet, as far as I know, but they can start at their choosing to take the lands and redistribute them. And this is going to cause a major disaster. Now, I would not use the word... Now, Trump have used the word genocide as if it is occurring. I do not know if it's occurring, but there's certainly a lot of people encouraging a genocide to occur. But I would not say that it is occurring as yet. I am not praying for something like that to happen. I wish for these people to be safe at the end of the day of this whole period of transition, shall we say, that they are going through. But I think Trump should be a little more careful in using that word, about this word genocide. People just throw this word around a little too much, because we have a genocide going on, a quote-unquote genocide going on right now in Gaza, when these damn people started the war, and now they're complaining, then they come crying to the world about the genocide. This is not such nonsense. It's unbelievable, and I can't believe the world is falling fit. But getting back to South Africa.
Yeah, Leon, let's not go down that rabbit hole.
I know. Let's get back to South Africa. I said that. Getting back to South Africa. The point is, though, notice the left. Notice the left. For the first time, now for the last 4 years, they wanted migrants from anywhere, these so-called migrants from anywhere. They want them, they're welcoming them into America in great numbers. Trump authorized the entry of 59 South Africans into the United States, and the left have gone up in arms. You know why? Because the people they're letting are white, and they're probably not going to vote for the left. They will probably end up voting eventually for the Republicans, probably, more than likely. But they're up in arms. You know why they're up in arms? Because these people are white. Okay,
Leon, but part of the issue too here is that a lot of the migrants who've been coming in have been claiming political refugee status, but when you talk to them, a lot of them are just clearly economic refugees. They're essentially coming because they want a better life, which I can certainly understand from a libertarian position. But the point is, it's a different legal status than somebody who's literally fleeing political persecution. And probably that's the way Trump should be framing this, as political persecution. But when you're literally saying, hey, we got to kill this class of people, that political persecution is such a razor's edge from being a genocide potentially. So it's
yes. But Jason, I am saying the objections that we're seeing right now from the left, from these people, after all of these years of welcoming, oh God, we have sanctuary cities, let's bring in all these migrants and everybody else, or they want to come here and have a better life, blah, blah, blah. why they're objecting to the South Africans. They're migrants too. Just like all of these people, they're migrants too. Why they object to them? The only reason I'm telling you is because of their race. That's the reason. Because I'm sure if they brought 59 black South Africans into the United States, I bet you the left will never object it. I'll bet money on that.
Yeah. Well, it almost reminds me of that whole thing with the Brittany Griner thing where she was in Russia and she was being held by Putin, and she was only there for a very short period of time, but because she was a prominent lesbian basketball player, she was Biden went to bat for her right away and got her out. And there was a whole bunch of white guys who were, I think one of them was a reporter who was being held there. And they just let him sit there.
A Wall Street Journal reporter, yes. Yes.
So it's all about identity for a lot of these different things. But so anyways, I think it's a good point to move. Oh, there was one other point I wanted to mention on this story as well. And that's that this is really a kind of an issue about the media that we're seeing as well, gaslighting from the media, because this week literally just saw Trump do this mic drop moment in the Oval Office where they were questioning him, where's the evidence of a genocide? And then he shows them all these South Africans screaming in stadiums for death. Yes. A group of people. And and you can't believe the reporting. So here's PolitiFact, Trump Afrikaner refugee policy based upon unfounded claims about land white farmer genocide. And here is a story from Reuters today about this thing that happens here. And it says Trump confronts South Africa's Ramosa with false claims of white genocide. I mean, he literally brought a television set and showed what we saw there. I mean,
what's
just
going on?
False claims is nuts. I mean, he could say he brought evidence, and maybe it's inconclusive the way Leon is saying, but to sit here and say there's no evidence, it's just a false claim is nuts.
Absolutely. Yes.
So just media gaslighting over and over and over again. I don't think these people will ever get their credibility back.
they're working hard to not to get it back, quite frankly.
Yeah. Well, speaking of this particular race story, this takes us into another thing in our country. We were talking a little bit about this being maybe a sort of a reparations tie-in in South Africa. Well, that kind of what's going on in this is up in the state of Washington. They have a story where there's going to be a new law charges home buyers 100% to help minorities with down payment. But what it's actually winding up doing is it's creating this weird kind of law that is just going to allow for specifically for black people who are, I guess can show they've somehow connected to victims of redlining. I'm not even sure how they have to show the evidence, but they will qualify for these interest-free loans. It could be well over $100,000. And then if their income is low enough, they get loan forgiveness after 5 years. So, I mean, this is essentially giving away, $100,000+ of taxpayer money based upon race. And it's absolutely nuts. In fact, I do have a little video clip I'm going to show so you can see a little more about the story.
Basically, this new law modifies some of the qualifications first-time homebuyers would have to meet in order to get zero-interest loans to cover down payments and closing costs. The new law also expands eligible groups working to close the gap between people of color, particularly black households, and white households.
What would you say to critics who say this is just a form of reverse discrimination?
Yeah, and that's unfortunate because what I don't think they're taking into consideration is the overall impact that housing has on so many other factors that affect their lives.
That, Kale tells me, can include crime, safety, education, and other factors. This new law now also includes loan forgiveness after 5 years if the household income is 80% or less of the median average.
Oh, so let me go back to the story there. Sorry. But yeah, so it's absolutely nuts. They're sitting there and essentially trying to find a workaround for reparations to tie it into a housing loan program and then, hand out money that way. What do you guys think about this? I mean, to me, it's just nuts. We had a crazy reparations program in California where they were actually trying to hand people who just had to show they were black and somehow that their family had been in California like 50 years ago or something, and they get millions of dollars and, free homes and free education and everything else.
The election is over, Jason. The election is over. Okay. No, notice where it went. Tim, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Is it based on the color of their skin, not the content of their character?
Yes, it is. It is the color of their skin. Yes, that is quite clear.
Just want to be sure on that.
Yeah. Well,
That's it.
It's well, yeah, it's just absolutely nuts. It seems to me that we've got all of these stories in different places where they're just, going around and, doing reparations in all these different places. In fact, here's the Pacific Legal Foundation. I guess they're keeping track of this. And so they are looking at a lot of the bills that are coming through a lot of different places. And they talk here about this Maryland one where they were poised to consider a reparations committee bill or something. And that actually got voted down or got vetoed rather by the governor. So it was one of those things. In fact, it was actually oddly, it was actually a black guy who was the governor, and he thought it was a bad idea. so even though he, maybe he wasn't personally going to benefit, I don't know. but yeah, I mean, this is a thing in a lot of different places, including California. And if you think that this home loan scheme is just a Washington State thing, it may come to your neighborhood sooner than you think.
Really true. Nothing will destroy society faster than the good intentions of these white liberals. They are a disaster. They are a walking disaster for society and for Black society in particular. That woman in that little clip you just played, she used the expression reverse discrimination. That phrase is so damn racist, it's unbelievable. What does that mean? Reverse discrimination? Then that presumes that discrimination or racism could only go in one direction. That's the presumption of a statement. And they keep on going with all these good intentions and paving this nice road to hell. That's what it's doing, paving the road to hell. This is racist nonsense. It is very reminiscent of the 1950s and the 1940s when the laws were being passed that discriminated against Black. It was all legal. Jim Crow was all legal. And what they're doing right now, they're bringing Jim Crow back. And they know what they're trying to tell us? Oh, it's going to benefit us. It's going to be so nice. It's going to be so wonderful. They're going to close the gap. And oh God, we're going to have this racial paradise, this utopia in America. It's coming, people. Don't worry, it's coming. This is what these jackasses are trying to tell us. They're trying to make a racial utopia by bringing the policies of the Ku Klux Klan to our neighborhoods. This is what is happening. And nothing will destroy our society faster than these white liberals. God help us.
You got a lot of society destroying things going on here between immigration and this kind of reparation stuff. I don't know which one's going to destroy us first, Leon.
Maybe you're right. There are just too many. They're becoming overwhelming. Yes, you're right.
And I, as far as the reparations thing, I don't have anything to add to that, actually.
Well, it's sad too, because so much of this stuff is, government does the wrong thing in one direction, just like we were talking about with our friend Mises. In fact, let me bring that up, the unintended consequences. But, they sit there and, boy, they thought it was just a great idea maybe in the 1930s, 40s, 50s to have a bunch of racist segregationist laws. And then lo and behold, government comes back and says, don't worry, we'll fix it. And what do they come back with? A bunch of racist segregationist laws under the guise, first they said it would be colorblind, which I think is a wonderful goal. But now they're telling us colorblind is not what we should be after. They're telling us that we should be obsessed with color and obsessed with genitals. I mean, I'm just like, can't we all just be people?
Yes. Can't we all just get along? Can't we just all get along?
But yeah, I think Mr. Mises hits it on the head again with this one.
Indeed.
But, another story that I think, and this brings us to our Knucklehead Noise Patrol as we get ready to round out the show, but I think Mr. Mises would have something to say about this. But our current president, with the good, the bad, and the ugly of Trump, we've seen a lot of kind of ways he seems to be looking out for people with respect to treating people fairly by race and by trying to cut down on some of our immigration problems. But then he turns around, the bad and the ugly pops up in his economic rhetoric. So he's been telling us how wealthy we're going to get from tariffs. And then he turns around and he tells Walmart in a text that you've got to eat the tariffs. The 10% tariffs that, and he's threatening Walmart. He's telling him he's going to be watching them. It's absolutely nuts. And so I had a video I wanted to share, and it kind of goes through some of these crazy things he's saying about trade, and also too a little bit from another past president on the issue as well. So I'm going to bring up that video right now.
We've gone cold turkey. That means that we're not losing. We lost $1 trillion to China. $1 trillion. That means we're not losing $1 trillion when we go cold turkey, because we're not doing business with them right now. And they want to make a deal. They want to make a deal very badly. We'll see how that all turns out, but it's got to be a fair deal. But think of it. We're losing $1 trillion. And tariffs. The tariffs are going to make us rich. We're going to be a very rich country.
So let's talk about the tariffs. And I want to ask you about something you said this week. Got a lot of attention. You were at your cabinet meeting. You said, quote, I'm going to quote what you said, maybe the children will have $2 instead of $30.
Yeah.
And maybe the $2 will cost a couple of bucks more than they would normally. Are you saying that your tariffs will cause some prices to go up?
No, I think your tariffs are going to be great for us because it's going to make us rich.
But you said some dolls are going to cost more. Isn't that an acknowledgement that some prices will go up?
I don't think a beautiful baby girl that's 11 years old needs to have 30 dolls. I think they can have 3 dolls or 4 dolls because what we were doing with China was just unbelievable. We had a trade deficit of hundreds of billions of dollars with China.
When you say they could have $3 instead of $30, are you saying Americans could see empty store shelves?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm just saying they don't need to have $30. They can have 3. They don't need to have 250 pencils. They can have 5.
So you heard Trump say a few kind of crazy things about trade there. One, he said that free trade with China costs us, and free trade doesn't actually cost us. It's actually limiting trade that costs us. When something is a voluntary exchange between two people, that's a win-win, and both parties generally benefit from that. He also talked about how we're going to get rich from tariffs, which is a fundamental misunderstanding, again, of tariffs. That's like saying you can tax your way to prosperity. Tariffs are not a route to wealth. It's free trade that is a route to wealth. And finally, he started talking about how it wasn't up to individuals to figure out how many dolls or pencils they needed, which sounds absolutely like sort of another crazy on the political scene that we're all familiar with, and that's Senator Bernie Sanders. These are, Trump, there's the good, the bad, and the ugly with Trump, and unfortunately, a lot of his economic rhetoric is ugly. That said, let's hear from another past president on maybe the way we should be looking more at trade.
But our economic system, based on individual freedom, private initiative, and free trade, has produced more human progress than any other in history. It's in all our interest to preserve it, protect it, and strengthen it. We're reminding our trading partners that preserving individual freedom and restoring prosperity also requires free and fair trade in the marketplace. The United States took the lead after World War II in creating an international trading and financial system that limited government's ability to disrupt free trade across borders. We did this because history had taught us an important lesson. Free trade serves the cause of economic progress, and it serves the cause of world peace. When governments get too involved in trade, economic costs increase and political disputes multiply. Peace is threatened. In the 1930s, the world experienced an ugly specter: protectionism and trade wars, and eventually real wars and unprecedented suffering and loss of life. There are some who seem to believe that we should run up the American flag in defense of our markets. They would embrace protectionism again and insulate our markets from world competition. Well, the last time the United States tried that, there was enormous economic distress in the world. World trade fell by 60%, and young Americans soon followed the American flag into World War II. I'm old enough and hopefully wise enough not to forget the lessons of those unhappy years. The world must never live through such a nightmare again. We're in the same boat with our trading partners. If one partner shoots a hole in the boat, does it make sense for the other one to shoot another hole in the boat? Some say yes, and call that getting tough. Well, I call it stupid. We shouldn't be shooting holes. We should be working together to plug them up. We must strengthen the boat of free markets and fair trade so it can lead the world to economic recovery and greater political stability.
So there you have it. President Reagan saying, don't shoot any holes in the boat, and Trump out there saying, I'm going to shoot the biggest, most beautiful hole ever in the boat. I don't know. What do you guys think of it?
Well, I mean, philosophically, I think Jason, you know that philosophically, I'm against tariffs. I've always been against them, and I remain against them, even though I voted for Donald Trump. But the problem is here that I want to give Trump a little bit of leeway. I mean, some of his lunatic statements notwithstanding, I do want to give Trump a little bit of leeway because, you know, even you listen to Ronald Reagan's statement, okay? He said free and fair trade. Now, I'm not sure about what fair trade really mean, but I think what you really mean is that.
But let me interject for a second, Leon. He actually did employ some tariffs too, because back then the specter was Japan, and so in fact Trump was even talking about Japan back in those days, or at least during the Clinton administration.
Right. You took the words out of my mouth. I was just going to raise that, but you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right, though. Yeah. But this is just the point. Is the free trade, which I am fully supportive of, but the essence of fair trade, I guess, is what they're trying to get at, is that, well, okay, so we're going to open up our markets and allow us to have, you know, all the benefits of free trade, but we would also like to have you open up your market so that your citizens could have the benefits of free trade also. And I'm willing to give Trump a little bit of leeway, even though I'm philosophically against tariffs, a little bit of leeway to get to that point. But Trump does make some of these lunatic statements that does make it difficult for me to continue to support him on this endeavor. I mean, some of his statements are truly lunatic, like telling Walmart to eat the tariffs. What the hell does that mean? What the hell does that mean?
Eat the success, right?
You know, I want to explore that question that Leon just asked. What does that mean? Eat the tariffs. Now, I get the idea that he's telling Walmart, and I'm getting a low battery warning here. He's telling Walmart to eat the tariffs and not to pass on the cost of the tariffs to their customers by increasing their prices enough to actually make a profit. Because, okay, first of all, we know that Walmart's profit margin is teensy weensy.
Yes.
Razor sharp. Yes. Okay, razor thin.
Yes.
Okay, they are on thin ice, and tariffs are a blowtorch on that thin ice. Okay. And so if he's telling Walmart to eat the tariffs, what he's essentially telling Walmart is to lose money, be in the business of losing money. Is that what he's telling? I don't think he's telling. Is that what he means when he says eat the tariffs to Walmart?
Either that, Tim, or what he's thinking is it's like the way Democrats see corporations, that they have the Scrooge McDuck vault, and Walmart is just skiing around on their pile of gold, and they'll have to hand over a little bit.
Right. It's the same concept like when Bernie Sanders said, we're gonna raise taxes on these evil corporations. We're gonna raise taxes. What do you really think the corporation is gonna do? They have to pass that along to the consumers.
Yeah,
Who's gonna hand the money to the government is a different issue. But the consumers gonna pay it?
Correct. Yeah. I mean, it's a line item that's a cost of doing business for a corporation. It's similarly.
Right.
Tariff is similarly a line item that Walmart has, and it's a legitimate tax write-off, and so it's a cost, but it's a cost. And so if it is a cost, and it is, then they have to structure their pricing to cover the cost and then allow for their normal 1 or 2 or 2.5% profit margin. Okay, so they cannot eat the tariffs. All right, it's like Leon has that other example of the corporation, same exact thing, nothing different, other than, one of the costs is tariffs, and the other one is some other corporate tax that they have to pay. So to the government, by the way, I remind everyone, this is money going from our pockets to the coffers of the United States federal government, who, I will remind them, is now facing here in the not too distant future $2 trillion account deficits per year. It's already over $1 trillion, and we're already 36 trillion in debt. Okay, so that's saying that they need to do something about their issue of spending, and they have no place, whether it comes from the mouth of a Republican or a Democrat, to admonish a company to eat the tariffs or eat the taxes, eat the corporate taxes, either one. There's no eating going on in these corporations, okay? The eating of the spending is these government blowhards, all of them, Republican, Democrat, they want the government to go on profligately spending with reckless abandon, with no restrictions whatsoever. That's what they want. Okay, know that. Mm-hmm. And there's the debt. You can just look at it, and that's from them getting what they want. Okay, they've got what they want. Yet they still want to admonish corporations to eat tariffs. Ludicrous. So there you are.
Yeah, it's absolutely nuts. But I do like to say though too that with Trump we have the good, the bad, and the ugly. With Biden we only have the bad and the ugly. So that's part of the issue here. Yes. But it's really the rhetoric, because there are some things that I think Trump and some of his supporters think that there's issues with intellectual property going on with China that they're trying to combat, and that's all part of this trade mess. I'm not saying necessarily that they have the right solutions in there, but the issue is that at least they are trying to do something to confront it. I think just general tariffs is a bad way to go, and throwing them on the entire world is it's not the smartest way to go either. But that said, he's actually doing something, which a lot of these people, they don't do anything. And of course, one thing Trump isn't doing anything with is the debt that we've been showing here, and nobody is doing with that either. And
very true,
right? True. And the spending. And the spending and everything DOGE found has not been addressed, because it has to be addressed by Congress. Congress holds the purse strings, and they are the ones that are going to cut spending or not. And whether they find this stuff at USAID or anywhere else, waste, fraud, and abuse, it requires an act of Congress to fix it. Okay, Doge can't do it, Trump can't do it. It requires Congress. So they ain't doing it. They don't have any intention of doing it. So we will continue down this road. And my prediction is at the end of Trump's next term, will probably be 45 or so, 46 trillion in debt, maybe 50 trillion in debt more, especially if he gets his choice about increasing defense spending. That's okay. Here we go.
You said Trump next term. Which next term you're talking about? Trump only have one this term left.
The end of this term. This term right now. Mm-hmm. I'm assuming he's going to run, if he survives the whole 4 years. But where was I going? This is not looking the way he talked about. I'm going to reduce spending. I'm going to reduce the deficit. No, he has now unequivocally thrown that idea out the window, and he is not upholding that particular campaign promise. Okay, he's going to reduce inflation or prices. They call it prices. Everybody mixes the two up. Ridiculous, but he's going to reduce prices. And I know you guys are ready for me to shut up.
Well, Tim, actually next week we'll probably get to talk a little more about the whole debt and spending issues, because We're going to have Stephen Nikila, the new Libertarian National Chair, is going to be our guest next week. And I'm sure we're going to talk a little bit about what's going on in the national government, with all of the problems that are going on there. And actually, a week later, we're going to have the California party chair for the Libertarian Party is going to be here, Adrian Malagon. So we've got a few guests lined up for the next few weeks, and we'll get to talk about some California issues with him. And maybe a little bit about what's going on with the Mises caucus too. But I can't think of anything else. You guys have any last shots before we close out?
And this preview, this commercial was brought to you by Jason McPhee
of the Knuckleheads of Liberty.
The only thing I want to say.
There you go.
The only thing I want to say is, I want the question answered about what's the end game on these tariffs. Okay, because you cannot have your cake and eat it too. Either one of two things: either going to continue tariffs indefinitely, causing companies to move back to America and have things made in America, or you're going to have tariffs temporarily as an imperative for other countries to reduce their tariffs, and then we're going to get to this idyllic place of zero tariffs all around, a totally free and fair trade where nobody has tariffs. Okay, but you cannot have both. You cannot have endless tariffs forever and ever, and you cannot have temporary tariffs for a short time to make everybody play the game properly. Okay, you cannot have both. Which one is it? That's what I'm wondering.
Well, if I may interject here on that particular point of what the goal is, as I understand it, Tim and Jason, Trump is trying to get to zero tariffs everywhere. He have already made a deal with the UK, which kind of indicate that, well, we haven't seen the actual paperwork on that yet, which kind of indicate they're gonna have a bilateral deal where neither side is going to be charging tariffs to the other. And I think this is what Trump wants to do all over, to have all these bilateral deals, Mexico, Canada, Europe, bilateral deals with zero tariffs. I think that's what they're trying. Well, minimal tariffs, maybe I should probably say. That is what they're aiming for. Now, if that is what they're aiming for, I can support that, even though his method of getting there, I'm having some real problems with.
Well, when he says he knows how many dolls and pencils are the right number for you, Leon, I'm not 100% sure that's exactly what he's thinking. But I was giving him the benefit of the doubt for a little bit, but it's starting to get a little bit dicey.
Yeah, and okay, so Leon, he's lying when he talks about bringing jobs back to America, because when it's a level playing field, that means I still get to go down and buy my Lexus at a fair price without tariffs, and the Chevy dealer next door is going to still keep producing crap.
Well, you're right in that sense, but okay. I think Trump is counting on the innovative and the creativity skills of us Americans, so that we could outcompete the world when free and fair trade is in place. This is what I think he's aiming for.
So he's not lying when he says bring jobs back to America, because he
exactly
always tags it onto the tariffs.
Well, I know what he says. I'm telling you, with Trump's statements are downright lunatic. I'm not joking about that. It's downright lunatic. But I think his goals make sense. If he could have just articulate them a little bit better, I think we wouldn't be having this kind of discussion about him. But some of his statements are downright lunatic.
Okay, well, we'll see what happens in a. I don't know how long it's supposed to take, but he's got 4 years max to make this work. Okay, to go to this idyllic world of zero tariffs. And we'll see
I don't know if I want to give him 4 years. Maybe at the end of the year. Maybe come on.
Well, yeah, that's what I would say. I agree.
I'm violating every one of my principles just to support his goals here.
Yeah, it would get tiresome to go through 4 years of that. But
of course.
Yeah, I agree. But I'm just trying to give him the benefit of the doubt and give him all the support I can possibly muster up in here.
Well, this is one of the things that worries me just a little bit with all this. Well, I'm worried a lot actually, but one of the things that even if Trump has the right goal in mind, but he's got terrible rhetoric, the problem is a lot of the people who support him may only remember the rhetoric. And so even if Trump winds up having his hands on the right levers and doing the right thing, and it's not in line with his rhetoric, then he leaves, all his supporters are going to remember is what he said. And the people who want to do those crazy things are going to be out there saying, well, Trump wanted to do that, so let's go do it.
Yes, exactly.
So that worries me quite a bit. So,
and it also scares me. What scares me is what I am saying, quite frankly, because it sure held songs like the ends justify the means. So I'm really having a little problem with even my own statements.
It sounds like Bernie Sanders could be his chief economic advisor, which scares the hell out of me.
Well, I'm worried about the battery life on my iPad here, because I've been using it all day long, and it's telling me it's got 5%. So if we're not wrapping up pretty soon, I may blink and go away.
I think that's the sign we've been given. It's time to go. So thanks so much, everybody, for watching us. And until next time, think about what you could be doing in your community to advance the ball for liberty. Because as you see, even some of the people who we call friends seem to be coming after some of our liberties. So you got to do your part, or we're surely going to lose it. So until next time, stay tuned and stay free.
Yes, indeed. Life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness, always and forever.
Thank you for listening to the Knuckleheads of Liberty podcast. Find us on Facebook, Rumble, YouTube, your favorite podcast network, and at knuckleheadsofliberty.com.